This is video 3 in the Disaster Response Call Center Specialist Part 1 training. Today's training will focus on non-aviation disasters. Non-aviation disasters include a variety of different types of disasters. They could be community type natural disasters, large-scale arena like sporting events, disasters, schools, universities. And for all those different types of disasters, the aviation model that we learned about in video 1 and 2 applies to how we will handle and respond to those types of disasters. We will stand up our call center and assist with travel needs for family members. A lot of clients may choose to also set up that family assistance center in a hotel somewhere near the scene or near the site of where the disaster occurred. And as specialists, we will continue to support survivors and victims' families. So there are some differences that we want to talk about today in regard to how aviation disasters are handled and how non-aviation disasters are handled. As you remember, when we assist during an aviation disaster, there is a confirmed flight list at some point during the activation. It starts out with that preliminary list so we know who at one point held a reservation, and at some point we get that confirmed flight list so we know who boarded the aircraft. With these non-aviation type disasters, there's typically no predefined list of who's on site or who may have been impacted. Really, the information that we receive comes from the callers. So those concerned loved ones, family members who are calling in and informing us that they believe their loved one may have been near the scene of the disaster, that's really how we're getting information about who may have been impacted. And we use that information to help create a potential victim list or a potential missing persons list. Also, it does often take longer to confirm the victim's status. Now, this role itself can be a little more difficult for responders in our networks just based on having less information to provide. It can feel somewhat ineffective or maybe a feeling of helplessness because you're trying to provide support and information to the callers who are calling in, but we have a lack of information in the beginning. It takes a longer time to resolve and find information and work with local authorities and people at the scene and communicating within the community itself to gather information about who's actually been impacted. So this role can be more challenging. There's also, in these types of disasters, there can be thousands of people who were at the scene and or at the site of where the disaster occurred. So it can affect a lot more people and there can be a lot more victims. So our primary tasks really kind of remain the same as handling those aviation disasters. We will have a call center. We'll get that up and running within 60 minutes of notification from our client. And we will answer calls to support family members and to provide them with information as we do receive information. Of course, we want to gather as much information from those callers as well. So we follow that same process of gathering information from family members and ensuring we're speaking with family members. We use that information to help create that potential missing persons list, and it's really based on those reports from those family members, those loved ones. This slide gives kind of a overview of everything we just talked about, how those calls come in, how we create that list, and how over time that list can actually become less. We have cell phone towers that become less jammed, and as those potential victims actually connect with their family members and let them know they're okay and they weren't actually impacted by the disaster, those loved ones can update us here at the call center, and we're able to then help lessen our potential missing persons list. And this really helps us then to be able to support those families whose loved ones remain missing and are still unaccounted for. So some of the really notable things about non-aviation disasters are that we follow that same process of collecting information first before providing or giving out any information. And of course, we only give information to callers who meet the definition of family. So we're continuing to use that kind of broad definition of family, ensuring that there is a legal or a through blood or legal matters, a family connection, or one of an emotional significance. So we follow that same definition. And we also have scripting in our database that will help us take those calls so that it ensures we are gathering information first, the needed information, and then confirming if we're speaking to family before providing any type of information. And to do that, it is the same process, going to the Client Management tab and then choosing the Manage Client List scripting option to start taking calls. When you process a call, you'll get that same page, Manage Client List, and you'll have your greeting of how you answer the phone. We, of course, always still represent our client, and so we will be answering the phone as the name of our client and using our first name only. And we then listen and hear what the caller is saying. And if the caller is letting us know that they are concerned about someone, there is someone that they cannot reach and cannot find and believe may have been affected by the incident, then you have the option to click here and choose with your mouse this radio button for caller provides one or more names. When you search for the individual, you'll be able to ask for their spelling of their last name and their first name and begin your search. And of course, typically in the beginning of a activation, as those first calls start coming in, most likely this name will not show up. At some point though, lots of people may be calling in about their loved one, and we may have already Carrie Hamilton in our database. And if so, her name would show up below after you search. Now in this case, her husband calls in for this scenario, and he's asking if we have any information about Carrie Hamilton, his wife. And as you can see, when we click the search button, uh, her name does not come up, so no one else has yet added her to this potential missing persons list. And what the database does is search to see if anyone has, and if not, then it's going to ask you as the specialist or the agent to please double check the spelling of the name, research just to verify that for sure she's not already in our database. And then if she's not, you go ahead and click the Add Client button. So that's this tab right here. You just click it with your mouse, and this will then create a profile for Carrie Hamilton and take you through the steps to gather information so that we can have her name on this potential victim list or potential missing persons list. So here you can see an example of the scripting that will come up after you've added someone to the list, and it will guide you through the process. So it's very important to use the scripting and just go step by step, entering the information that it's asking. Your information is asked for first, and it's made known to you by the words agent. So it's saying, agent, please enter in your name, your extension, and the primary language of the caller will default to English, so please do change it if that is not the caller's primary language that you're speaking in. And then, of course, we want to gather that information from the caller. So at first, the caller's last name, then in this scenario, the husband provides his first name, his middle name, the best number to reach him at, and we, of course, are always going to ask for spelling and repeat back phone numbers. Finally, we then ask some information about his wife, and we know that she was shopping near the Galleria Mall where this incident occurred, and he informs us that that's why he believes she was possibly affected. And we put her gender and date of birth if the date of birth is known, and then of course how is this caller related. So as her husband, he of course is considered family. Here's that question mark where you can hover over with your mouse if you need a reminder of who is considered family. But since he's considered family, then we're able to choose that option and we're given information to provide to him. And what's different with this information when it's a family member is that we're informing the family member that once we receive information, we'll be calling you back. We will call you back with information. If you're not considered family, it's the same process as in aviation disasters. We cannot, due to confidentiality, give out information to non-family members, but we still would like to get updates from a non-family member as well. So what we've created is a website, and as you provide this notification here to a family member, letting them know that you'll update them, you're also asking that they update us. And rather than have this husband or any other family member or even a friend call back to our toll-free number and wait to speak with someone, they can update us real time through a secure website that we've created called crisisinquiry.com. This website is available to callers to use, and once we've created a profile for the caller and have added them as a contact to the person's profile who they're concerned about, then they are able to post updates by providing us with a 4-digit code. This 4-digit code is any 4 digits that they choose, and we just have to enter them in this field. And by entering them in that field and then submitting the info and saving all this information that we just gathered, it then allows that caller to go to the crisis inquiry website at any time, enter in their last name and then their 4-digit code, and then they are able to provide us with updates. And what happens is those updates actually will then automatically be updated in our database as well. So for future people who call, we'll have that information available to us. And we'll be able to provide information if we're speaking with a family member. So this is an example of the crisis inquiry website and what a caller would see when they go to that website and log in using that 4-digit code that they created and then their last name. Again, I just want to point out that this last name is the last name of the caller, and it has to match how you entered it when you created that caller as a contact in our database. So always, always double check spellings. And here you can see that in this scenario, Michael Roberts mother is concerned about him, and so now she has went to the website and let us know that an hour ago she spoke with us. She had reported that her son, she believed, may have been missing. And here you can see she's letting us know that he's not injured, he's okay. He had already left the mall when the plane had crashed into the Galleria Mall, and he's home safe. And here again, she denotes where he is. He's home. And when she clicked submit, then that information was received to us as well in our database. And here is an example of her son's profile. He was part of the potential victim list, and here you can see that there's been a status update from his mother, and all that information is here now. So we know for reporting purposes that authorities at the scene no longer need to be looking for Michael Roberts, and we know where he is, and we know he's safe and he's okay. And we'll have that information for future callers who are considered family. So again, over time, that list will be reduced. We, of course, the crisis call center specialists will also be assigned to work with families, and typically that happens a little bit later, usually day 2. Whereas in those aviation disasters, we really strive to get those family assignments done as soon as possible. That way our specialists can start assisting and supporting families especially for those who are going to be wanting to travel to that family assistance center. We, of course, continue to provide updates to family members, help them coordinate travel plans, assist them if they need help with getting things like dental or medical records. We can make some of those difficult phone calls on their behalf and really explain the urgency of why those things would be needed. And then just to summarize, these are a few of our telephone guidelines. This is actually a good overview for the entire Part 1 training. So for all the types of disasters you may actually assist in, and for any type of calls that you take, these guidelines will really guide you through how to best handle calls. We really need to support family members and loved ones by listening, and having a notebook next to you can be very helpful because you can jot down notes so that you remember with whom you're speaking and their relationship to the potential victim. And by listening and being able to repeat back things that the caller's telling you, it will help that caller know that you're listening and you're very present. Of course, explaining the process. There's so many details, and it's hard sometimes for a caller to understand what a family assistance center is and really what's going to happen next. What are those next steps? So we should always be explaining that process. And of course, just being patient and really allowing that caller to ask questions and to vent if needed. It could be a very difficult time for this caller if the information they receive is that they've lost a loved one or their loved one has been impacted by this disaster. There's that chance that a child may call that toll-free number. If the child does sound young, or this person on the phone, you can always ask and verify their age. And if they're not an adult, of course you can inquire then about speaking with an adult or a family member, if there's someone else that you could call on behalf of this child and their family. We, of course, always want to use present tense language. So never ever refer to someone in the past tense. That could really come across poorly on the phone, and we want to stay present tense with the caller. And just acknowledging and empathizing, of course, it goes a long way. People need to know that you're listening, but you're also able to support them. And then finally, as we've said many, many times, but it it needs to be repeated. We need to verify spellings and phone numbers before we end each call. That phone number may be the only contact we have, and so it's very important it's a working number. Okay, so that is an overview of how we handle non-aviation types of disasters. They are similar, but there are a few differences. And hopefully by this point you have a clear idea of how our disaster response call center works and how you as a responder in our network would be able to assist from your home computer or your office computer, and how you would be able to help us and support families and organizations in crisis. The next steps for you, if you are still interested, as we hope you are, then it would be to log in, of course, to our database and go to the upper right My Account section. And that is where you are today to watch those training videos. So there is a copy of the PowerPoints for the videos. So you'll want to just review those and make sure you understand the material, because there is a short quiz that we ask that you take, and we'll need to have that on file for you. And you'll be able to take that quiz once you've reviewed. The quiz is also in the My Account section, and that quiz is on the far right tab here. There's a quiz and a feedback form. So please, as soon as you can, take that quiz, complete your feedback form, and get that back to me as soon as possible. You will receive 3.5 CEU credits for most license types, and your quiz and feedback form are needed on file for those CEU credits. Okay, once you do submit that, you will hear back from me. You'll get a score as well as information about any questions that you did not get correct. So we'll be able to review your quiz with you. And then of course you'll receive a link so that you can register for part 2 of our training. This is a 3-part training, and once you've completed part 2 and 3, we will have a short one-on-one evaluation just to go over any questions that you have and anything that needs to just be clarified for you, as well as explain to you information about our telecom system and ensure you understand how to use our telecom system. And then there is a video 4, so module 4 will be uploaded into the training video section, and that'll be there for you to review at any time, really. You could review it before you assist during an activation, or just as a reference point on how to take calls. It will be a good overview of the different call scenarios that we handle, and that will be available for you as well. I do want to briefly go over some important policies, just remembering that being part of our network, it's a commitment to not only this training and understanding how to use our database so that you can accurately handle calls and take calls and then support families in need, but also that you keep up with these skills. And of course, not using this database on a daily basis can make it difficult. You may forget how to use it, and you may not remember certain details. So to ensure that you're able to truly stay connected to being in our network, what we've designed are some best practice sessions. We ask that you complete 2 of these per year. You will be provided with CEU credits. They are, for our virtual network, they are provided online and you'll have the opportunity to log into the phone system and with other providers in our network practice taking calls and getting feedback. So they're fun and they're helpful and they'll help ensure that you have the practice you need so at the time of an activation you will feel prepared and ready to assist. Okay? When you do respond in an activation, of course, we will be doing end of shift debriefings. We will block off that last hour that you are able to assist and we'll have that be a debriefing so everyone will be required to participate in those. Also, it's just important to remind you that um, as a responder in our network, speaking to the media or writing or speaking publicly about this role is strictly prohibited. This is a unique role and your role is to be part of our network and to not write about your role and the clients that we have and what you do in that role. Also, engaging in any activities that could be construed as solicitation of clients for future therapeutic relationships is also strictly prohibited. So just a few final thoughts before we close. You, of course, are representing our clients, and that means the affected organization. So it's important how you respond and how you present on that phone call. Your greeting does need to represent the name of our client, and of course you will be interacting with the caller and forming those initial impressions of how that caller sees the organization responding to this disaster. So it's a very important role. We encourage you to keep that in mind. And then in regard to our scripting, it is important that you stick to the scripting. It's there to guide you and ensure that you are asking the appropriate questions and also the needed information before providing any type of notification. And if you go off script, there's no way that we can guide you. So the script is there to really assist you. Please follow the script. But of course, we don't want you to sound scripted. So you do want to personalize it and just make it your own. And then once again, just remember that this role is in regard to mass casualty types of disasters. They are rare. They don't happen that often. And so because they are infrequent, it's important that you stay connected, keep in touch with us. Let us know if your phone number changes or your email changes. And always let us know if you have questions or concerns. And of course, do your best to participate in at least 2 of those best practice sessions per year. Okay? I, I've really enjoyed our time together for part 1 of the training. This will conclude the video portion for today. And if there's any questions, please feel free to contact me directly. Thank you so much for your time and your interest in being a responder in the Black Swan Solutions Network. Thank you.